Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Apparently, Sophie Cunningham is getting a lot of heat, getting a lot of backlash. People hating on her for cashing in on Caitlin Clark, always talking about her on her podcast, and on and on and on. So I thought we'd just dial things back a little bit, give you a little reminder as to what Sophie Cunningham did earlier in this season that had not been done in a season plus by any Indiana Fever player. Shout out Anna, of course. She always finds this stuff for me. After a year and a half of watching Cece getting beaten up like she owed them money, this was incredibly satisfying. And this was, hold on, don't be running on me yet there, Mr. Video. Shh. And to Michael's point here, I know a lot of people are not happy with Sophie Cunningham because of her podcast. I get it. I don't get it. But I also get there for over a season, we watched time and time again Caitlin Clark get beat up, and she was the only one to say enough and do something about it. So let's run this back just a little bit. For those of you that don't remember now, of course, there was more to it. This was when Sophie Cunningham herself got hurt with JC Sheldon in a previous game, and then we had the nonsense that we had and the next time with JC Sheldon, purposely, you will not look at her facial expression after, look at the swipe of her hand, look at where the ball went. You will never convince me that JC Sheldon did not do what JC Sheldon did on purpose. And then the more I watch of what Marina Mabrey did after the fact, is that woman should have been suspended for the rest of the season. And this is where again, I will stand on Kathy Engelbert as a terrible commissioner. She did not get the league under control. She did not understand what she had with Caitlin Clark, or she just did. And then, of course, we had this with Sophie when she finally went after JC Sheldon and then made her look like a little rag doll. She's going to take on both women at once. You don't scare me. I am going to dog walk you a little bit. JC, you should not be coming after me in case you didn't know it. I'm a farm girl with a black belt in Taekwondo. Probably not best to be coming after me. And a lot of people will then say, oh, well, Sophie didn't do that for Caitlin. That was just because of what happened the previous game when she rolled her ankle. Man, come on now. And the one thing I couldn't find, I wish I did. Now, I did put it in another video when talking about this previously, is finally had found a angle from the end line behind the Fever basket, the one they were shooting at, so you could see the Fever bench down the line. And when Marina Mabrey blindsided Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham leapt off that bench so damn fast. The only reason she didn't get on the court is because the coach, and it's a smart decision because it would have been automatic that Sophie was tossed, probably would have been the one to end up get suspended, grabbed her and prevented her from going on the court when Caitlin got attacked. And the other thing I will say, and I think you see it early in this, and I'll let it run back to that as I speak. Lexi Hull did step in front of JC Sheldon because if you see after JC Sheldon swipes Caitlin Clark, Caitlin grabs her eye and Sheldon continues to go after her and Caitlin sort of pushes her away, which is completely understandable. It's like you just tried to blind me, which happened to me last year. Now you get out of my face. Completely understand that. So I believe Lexi Hall's like, no, no, none of that. Did step in front of her, which is the most that I've seen. And I think it's here where we'll see it. I think it's the most I've seen by another right there. So and Lexi's like, yeah, yeah, none of that. But again, Sophie Cunningham is really the only player in the Indiana Fever that has defended Caitlin Clark in the way we're seeing here, and not just on the court. That's the other thing, and that's what I think also separates Sophie Cunningham. Is she has been very vocal, including last year before she was even a member of the Indiana Fever, as to what Caitlin Clark means to the league and that she is the face of the league. And Sophie Cunningham has always been very vocal about that. So to sit here and be upset about her with the podcast or talking about how she's cashing in, and also very, if you watched the podcast, other than maybe just, it's hard not to talk about Caitlin Clark if you're talking about the WNBA, but specifically, I think to Caitlin Clark is Sophie Cunningham herself really only brings it up when she's asked about it. Now, if you're talking about the growth of the WNBA, how do you not talk about Caitlin Clark? So it's just so bizarre to me that people are attacking Sophie Cunningham as if she's cashing in. Now, one thing I will say to be consistent, I don't think any players, any athletes, and it's not just the WNBA, NBA. I hated it when you had Sixers doing it. These people should not have their own podcast that they do during the season. And a lot of people are not going to say, oh, well, why not? Do they have time off? But I don't care. It's a distraction. It's unnecessary. I don't think players should be doing it. And that's not just Sophie Cunningham. That's not just Aaliyah Boston. That's not just Angel Reese, for those that think I hate on Angel Reese. That is all of them. Now, is it different, especially if you're, doing it over Zoom or Skype or whatever it is system that you're using for players to go on media on podcasts and get interviewed during the season, and maybe they're doing it from home, and they don't have to really do any prep work. That's not theirs. They're not running it. It's just, hey, 6 o'clock or whatever, come on for 20 minutes, and they turn on their computer and do one. Yeah, I get it. Athletes have always gone on local sports radio and things like that. So I'm not saying never do interviews, don't do any media. I just think it's a distraction to have your own podcast. But that's just me. And to that, the one thing I wanted to add, which kind of got this going again, was Sophie Cunningham here talking about Caitlin Clark and the offense that the Fever have run.
Be Caitlin or like a healthy LeBron, wherever they go, that team will probably be above 500.
Yep. But
is that fair to say?
Yes, but I think that the reason behind that is because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CC making decisions like?
Yeah.
Within, yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should. But I also think that go
ahead. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that.
But when you have a generational talent like that, she should have a lot to say of the system. I also think when you have
Caitlin.
Now, here's the thing. I thought that was very interesting. And I think that, again, she's right. I think that I won't necessarily say because coach is coach, right? I won't necessarily say players should control things. But again, one of the big ones people have liked to compare this to is going all the way back to Magic Johnson and Westhead, who wanted to run this grinding half-court offense, which of course didn't suit Magic Johnson, didn't suit the Lakers. You had a sort of a player-coach standoff. The coach gets fired. I think you should have a coach that recognizes what your superstar, what your generational talent does well, and what makes the team the best with that, and then run that system. I think that's a big difference between the player making all of the decisions and with what Sophie Cunningham's saying. I think here it sounds like Caitlin Clark had input, but I think a lot of that input was ignored. Sorry, not annoyed. And we could see it. We saw a couple of games where Caitlin Clark was 100% Caitlin Clark. And we saw a lot of games when she played this year in those 13 where she absolutely was not, and it was boring, and none of us liked it, and Caitlin didn't play well in it. And I think Caitlin Clark very much graded. She may love Stephanie White. They may have a great relationship, and she may be like, I don't know, brainwashed into Stephanie White's the coach for me because Stephanie White says all the right things. But it's an interesting dichotomy because Caitlin Clark clearly, in listening to her speak throughout the season when she was playing, it was very clear that she did not like what the Fever were doing. Now, she didn't come out and say, hey, my coach is terrible, but she would make comments, and I played them before about how, we're best when we do this and not when we do this. And they were doing the thing they weren't best at. And it was very clear that she was grading against the system they were running. So it's going to be very interesting to see next year what happens with this team and the system they run. There's going to be a lot of changes to the roster as well. Although, of course, Stephanie White's going to be back, to who knows? We already know when I did a video on her with Caitlin Clark about the whole risk reward thing, and Stephanie White telling her not to throw passes that are the passes that make Caitlin Clark. So that's going to be interesting as well. But man, get off Sophie Cunningham's back. This is absolute nonsense to be like, oh, she's cashing. First of all, even if she is, she's not doing it, I don't think, in the way that a lot of people are trying to insinuate. I think her and Caitlin Clark seem to be actual friends. And Sophie Cunningham has always spoken her mind. Even before she was on the Fever, she talked about how, hey, you're idiots if you don't think Caitlin Clark is the face of the league, and it's fantastic for all of the rest of us. And you're seeing that with Sophie. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you checking out the video. As always, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Go of the day you deserve. I will talk to you later.